Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. Oh my gosh, it's been a while. So, for people who are new to the channel, this is a show that I used to do, and I ended up stopping it because I realized that trying to do like a weekly news show, kind of made me not able to cover news in a timely manner, right? And so I was like kind of struggling with I kind of would rather just make a short little video like when the news story happens so that I can be more timely. Also, I was quite frankly putting in a lot of effort into graphics and stuff like that, and so it kind of I felt like I was putting way too much effort into the show and I was covering stuff late, whereas I could just upload videos whenever the story would break, and that would be more beneficial for the channel. Well, anyways, I then realized that due to my schedule, because, this isn't my full time job or anything, I can't always get around to covering even making smaller videos when news stories happen. And so by not doing the show, I basically just got into this weird situation where I'm just not covering a ton of news stories at all. And so I basically decided that I'm going to bring the show back. Um I'll still make if I have the time, if a big news story breaks, I'll still make a video talking about it, but regardless of what happens, you know, every week, every Friday, I really should set a time, but I'll maybe figure that out next week. But every Friday, I will come here and I will go live and I will just yap about whatever news I want to talk about from the week. It'll be live. I'm quite frankly going to be putting a lot less effort into it. I'll be reading articles and stuff. It's not going to be edited at all, which is scary for me actually, because I've kind of gotten used to only making edited content really. Um, and yeah, I think it should be fun. And basically, I will cover every relevant piece of news, and that I think is the important thing. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. First of all, this is older news, admittedly, but I did want to cover Kathleen Kennedy leaving Lucasfilm. So let's just read through some of these quotes from her exit interview from Deadline. So they do confirm on a rainy London day in December, not 2 hours after wrapping Star Wars Starfighter with director Sean Levy and a cast headed by Ryan Gosling, Kathleen Kennedy was ready to discuss the long in the works transition of Lucasfilm. So I'm not going to necessarily do a massive breakdown of her time at Lucasfilm. I actually made a video on my main channel where I went through her entire tenure here. But I will just say that I ultimately think that it was a failure. She had some wins, of course, right? I think that she started off strong with The Force Awakens. I think she launched Star Wars on television with The Mandalorian. That's a pretty big accomplishment. She also, made the best Star Wars thing ever in Andor, right? I think Andor is by far and away the best thing that Star Wars has ever made. That being said, she flubbed the sequel trilogy, right? I don't think that she was the right person to be heading the creative side of Star Wars, right? When you got to a point with The Last Jedi and you had to decide, am I going to commit and am I just going to let what's his face? I forget his name. The guy who was initially going to direct the third sequel trilogy movie. Instead of letting him do his thing like we originally planned, or am I going to pivot to something else, but still make it make sense? It's like she's not the right person to, I think, to make those creative calls and to have a strong creative point of view and direction for the franchise. And let's be real. She hasn't made a movie since 2019. That's absurd. I mean, to be a studio head and to not make a movie in your most important franchise for 7 years, that is actually insane. And what has she been doing for the past 7 years? She's been making mid to terrible Disney Plus shows, which I think has jaded people to the Star Wars brand to such an extent that there is a new movie coming out later this year, The Mandalorian and Grogu, and it feels like nobody cares. Which is an absurd thing to think about, right? Like, think about the hype for The Force Awakens in 2015. Fast forward to now 2026, there is a brand new Star Wars movie coming out and nobody cares. That's a failure. It unfortunately is. But anyways, I'm not going to get too deep into it. You can go watch my video on my main channel if you want. Let's continue reading on the article. She's handing the reins to her longtime lieutenants. The Disney division will be run by Chief Creative Officer Dave Filoni, and on the business side, Lin-Wen Brennan, a sharp Welsh executive who has been Lucasfilm Executive Vice President and General Manager after 16 years at ILM. Apparently, Kathleen Kennedy's been grooming them, not in the inappropriate way. Kennedy has been getting them ready for a couple years as she plotted a return to her first love, producing. She'll be making a lot of, well, Star Wars films far in the future, as well as teaming on some projects with Frank Marshall. So, Dave Filoni's taken over. Listen, I'm not the biggest Dave Filoni fan. You know, I think Star Wars The Clone Wars, I think it's a lot of filler, frankly. I think it's not great for the most part. There's definitely some good arcs, like when the show decided to really lock in and tell good story arcs. I think those are pretty decent, but you know, most of it is filler that, quite frankly, I binged the whole thing and I kind of got I started hating the show after a while. Star Wars Rebels I think is better, but I still don't love it. And then, you know, he worked with Jon Favreau for the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. Those were pretty solid. Then season 3 comes out, and it's like, I didn't think it was great. And then he did his own live action project by himself with Ahsoka. This just isn't the guy, frankly, that I think should be leading Star Wars. Now, there are a couple things that could warm me up to the idea. First of all, if he comes out and he says, listen, I understand that we, you know, me and Kathleen Kennedy, have not been making the best Star Wars content in the past few years. And we are now working. We're instead of having the quantity over quality mindset that we used to have, we're now going to move forward being a little bit more selective. We're going to make sure each project is great. If he comes out and says something like that to that extent, the same way that Kevin Feige has said that about Marvel, I could absolutely warm up to the idea of Dave Filoni. If he came out and said, hey, for the first few years, I'm not going to be writing or directing anything. I'm going to be solely focused on being the new CEO. Like, if he came out and said stuff like that, yeah, I could absolutely warm up to the idea of Dave Filoni. But just as it stands, I'm not inclined to be super positive about this. Now, to be fair, he is, you know, co-CEO, so there is that other lady involved as well. But, I mean, it seems like the other lady, it seems like a James Gunn and Peter Safran situation where the other lady is more of the businessy person, so I don't even really know if she's going to have much of an impact on the creative, if at all. So, we'll see. Let's see, what else here? Sorry, I'm trying to find the next part of the of the article that I want to read. Okay, here we go. This is we're doing it live, as I mentioned earlier. So, deadline. Bob Iger retired, was replaced, and then came back. Kennedy. That is not happening here. I told everybody I would stick around a bit longer than I had intended, but I am so ready to go off and have the chance to make lots of movies. So, Kathleen Kennedy is saying in her exit interview with Deadline, I am not pulling a Bob Iger, okay? Once I am gone, I am gone. Which, I mean, I believe, like, so the main difference between her and Bob Iger is that when Bob Iger was in charge of Disney before his current reign, and before Bob Chapek, he did a phenomenal job, at least from a financial perspective. You can have your opinion on the MCU, you can have your opinion about Star Wars from 2015 to 2019. He was making insane amounts of money. Kennedy is simply not leaving on the best of terms. So even if Dave Filoni ends up being a disaster, I don't think they're going to run back to Kathleen Kennedy and be like, Kathleen Kennedy, save us. We want to go back to how it was when you were around. So I actually believe that. Deadline also asks, you've just wrapped the 6th film in the Star Wars universe. Is Starfighter meant to be an ongoing theatrical release or an ongoing theatrical series? Kennedy says it was envisioned as a single film. So that's, I think, an interesting thing to point out is that they're officially saying that Star Wars Starfighter is being seen more as a Rogue One type of movie where it is standalone. So that's interesting. I don't think maybe they've already said this, but I don't remember that. Deadline also says, were there any low points in your reign as executive? Kennedy says, the lows are that you've got a very, very small percentage of the fan base that has enormous expectations, and basically they want to continue to see pretty much the same thing. And if you're not going to do that, then you know going in that you're going to disappoint them. So, and then she kind of goes on to expound on that. And I gotta say, this was pretty disappointing because, like I mentioned earlier, I actually super appreciated when Kevin Feige came out and earnestly talked about how they haven't been making the best content in recent years. Like, hearing Kevin Feige earnestly say that actually made me kind of hopeful for the future of Marvel. I'm like, hey, if you can recognize that, then now I'm inclined to be a little bit more optimistic about, Daredevil Born Again Season 2, even though I wasn't a massive fan of Born Again Season 1. Maybe now I can be a little bit more optimistic about Doomsday, even though I'm not actually all that optimistic about Doomsday. But I am going to be a little bit more optimistic about, the future X-Men reboot and future movies and this and that and the other. Hearing Kathleen Kennedy not even be able to say, like, hey, we had a quantity over quality mindset. Hey, I had a rough job connecting with my directors and establishing a solid plan. The fact that she can't even come out and just honestly say stuff like that, it just, and I know she's leaving, but like we just said, Dave Filoni was groomed by her. Like, they were setting this up. So the fact that she couldn't honestly come out and say that, it just doesn't leave me super positive about the future. And it's just like saying like, fans, they just want the same thing over and over again. It's like, Andor proves otherwise. Andor is fairly different from previous Star Wars projects. It's not like that show had a ton of cameos. So like that, no, that's not the problem. The problem is that you made a bunch of bad content. Like it's unfortunate that she can't just come out and honestly say that. So this is an interesting thing, right? So Deadline asks, what about Rian Johnson returning? After Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, grossed $1.3 billion globally, we expected him to return. Then Kennedy says, once he made the Netflix deal and went off to start doing the Knives Out films, that has occupied a huge amount of time. That's the other thing that happens here. After Sean and I started talking about Star Wars, Stranger Things kicks in, and he was completely consumed for a while by that. That's what happened with Ryan. And then I do believe he got spooked by the online negativity. I think Ryan made one of the best Star Wars movies. He's a brilliant filmmaker, and he got spooked. So then Ryan Johnson comes out, and he says, LOL, zero spooked, sorry. So, yeah, Ryan coming out and directly contradicting Kathleen Kennedy here. So the way that I interpret all of this is that I think Kathleen Kennedy was trying to do the nice thing, where she didn't, like, I think that after the backlash of The Last Jedi, my assumption is that Lucasfilm just didn't want to do anything else with Ryan Johnson. Just because he made a divisive movie, and thus he is a divisive director within Star Wars. And so it's not the wisest thing to do to give him a whole another ass trilogy, right? And I think instead of coming out and saying that, I think Kathleen probably, she thought it would have been better for her to be like, yeah, he was busy with Knives Out, and, he got spooked by some of the online backlash, but we think he's a brilliant filmmaker, and we would love to work with him again. But I think Ryan Johnson, maybe not the smartest thing to do, from a career perspective, and being willing to play ball with the studios. But I kind of respect the fact that he's like, no. Just to be clear, I had no problem making more Star Wars. They didn't want me to make more Star Wars. So I think that's the truth of it. I think that Ryan Johnson probably was perfectly fine with making more Star Wars. I just don't think that Disney wanted him to make more Star Wars because of the backlash. But anyways, Deadline keeps asking more questions. How goes the project that Simon Kinberg is writing and producing? Kennedy says, he's working right now. He wrote something that we read in August, and it was very good, but not there. We've pretty much upended the story and then spent a great deal of time on the treatment, which he finished literally about 4 weeks ago. And it's a very detailed treatment, like 70 pages. And so he's expected to give us something in March. The Deadline asks, are there any other Star Wars spin-off films? Are there any other Star Wars films or spin-offs the fan base will never forgive me for overlooking? Kennedy says, we've talked about this new trilogy and then the things that you've mentioned. Mangold's is really on the back burner, as is Soderbergh's. I think the ones by Taika and Donald are still somewhat alive. That's going to really be up to the new team to figure out. Dave, I know that Dave and Linwin are very much on board with what Simon's doing, and that would be a new trilogy in the timeline of things. That takes you well into 2030 plus. So that's really what's up next. So based on her answers here, as of right now, the thing that's almost certainly going to happen is the Simon Kinberg trilogy. And frankly, it's based on the way that they're talking about it, I wouldn't be surprised if that just ends up being Star Wars episode 10, 11, and 12. It seems like the Soderbergh thing, I feel like, has always been, that thing is definitely not happening. That got canned. Interesting to see her say that the James Mangold movie is like the Soderbergh movie and that it's basically been canned. That's very interesting to hear. And it seems like she's saying that the Taika Waititi movie and the Donald Glover movie is still somewhat alive, that of the, the projects that are sort of permeating in the atmosphere, that those are the ones that are still alive, which are, I don't know, dude. Frankly, those are the two movies that Lucasfilm maybe shouldn't make. Like, I just don't think it's smart to give Taika Waititi a Star Wars movie right now. I mean, I'd like to see the Donald Glover Orlando movie, but like, Are you really going to do a spin-off of the only Star Wars movie that was a flop at the box office? It's like, I don't know, dude. Yeah, but we'll see. Um, James Mangold one seems interesting, right? Because that's like, if I remember correctly, that one was a prequel movie, and it was about the beginning of the Force, about like the first Jedi or something like that. Honestly, that seems like the most interesting thing to do. It's completely separate from anything. You're just letting James Mangold cook, even though you let him cook on Indiana Jones. I'm not even an Indiana Jones fan. I never watched that movie, but apparently it was bad. So maybe you don't want to let James Mangold cook. But he also made Logan, so maybe you do want to let him cook. I don't know. That one seems more interesting. I don't know why you're not making that one. Okay, let's go. Keep reading. So Deadline says, there's so much scrutiny on all things Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Some work better than others, but they all seem to gross big numbers. Is there any you wish you had back and maybe you could have done better with more time, or that you let go of something you'd love to have seen get made and released? Kennedy says, no. I don't really have any regrets. Well, maybe a little bit of regret about Solo, a Star Wars story. I brought Larry Kasdan in on, and we were so excited about that idea. And then when you're into something and you realize fundamentally, conceptually, you cannot replace Han Solo, at least right now. Deadline then said, Harrison Ford is a hard act to follow. Kennedy says, as wonderful as Alden Ehrenreich was, and he really was good and is a wonderful actor, we put him in an impossible situation. And once you're in it, and once you've committed, you've got to carry on. I think I have a bit of regret about that, but not about the movie making and filmmaking. I don't have regrets about that. I just think that conceptually, we did it too soon. So I gotta say, one of my personal things that I'm frustrated with when it comes to Star Wars is just I just don't like the deepfake stuff. Okay, I want to see characters get recast. It doesn't need to be Sebastian Stan, but bring back Sebastian Stan as Luke Skywalker. That's what I want to see. I feel like whenever deepfakes get put in, they look like soulless mannequins. And honestly, I feel like the technology hasn't even improved that much since that one episode of The Mandalorian, when they brought back Luke Skywalker. We're watching Fallout right now, and one of the characters, whenever they go back in time, one of the characters gets deepfaked. It looks terrible. It still pulls me out of the story. So now I'm just scared, because it really does seem like still in 2026, Lucasfilm, and again, maybe Dave Filoni is going to feel differently, but I doubt it, considering he did what he did with, The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and Luke Skywalker. It seems like if we get more projects with these classic characters, instead of recasting, they're just going to do deepfakes. And I just feel like that's I don't know. I feel like that's the wrong lesson to take from Solo. I feel like Solo was a bad movie. B, I think they just overestimated the desire of people to see a Han Solo movie. Let me pose this question. How much more money would the movie have made if it was a de-aged Harrison Ford? And let's just say that it was a really good de-aged Harrison Ford. How much more money would that movie have made? I don't think it would have made that much more money. I really don't. But I could be wrong. All right. Let me just read this real quick. Okay. So, I should have read this earlier, but in the wrap, they basically went into more detail on why I am not super positive on Dave Filoni running Star Wars. So let's just read some things. According to a source who worked with the studio, Filoni wasn't keen on Star Wars Visions. Championed by Kennedy, there have been 3 seasons of the anthology with a new spin-off series, Star Wars Visions Presents, framing a series of standalone shows. The first, The Ninth Jedi, is an anime series set to debut later this year. So first of all, before reading that today, I didn't even know that was happening. I guess Star Wars Visions is going to start making entire seasons of shows following up on previous Star Wars Visions episodes. So I'm kind of excited about that. But Filoni wasn't keen on Star Wars Visions? Why? Why wouldn't you be keen on Star Wars Visions? Literally, what problem could... It's such an inoffensive show. Again, we don't know exactly why not, but I just find that interesting. Anyways, let's move on to the other thing. This next one is gonna be... This is really the stickler for me. Filoni was publicly supportive of Tony Gilroy's critically acclaimed live-action series Andor, but behind the scenes, he discussed his dissatisfaction with the show, according to one Lucasfilm insider who spoke with The Wrap. Lucasfilm denied this characterization of events. Gilroy openly deviated from events depicted in Filoni's Star Wars Rebels, including Mon Mothma's daring escape from Coruscant. Filoni never spoke out against the changes, but Gilroy told Entertainment Weekly last year about the approach he and his brother Dan Gilroy took, saying, "We are hijacking canon. In canon, she's rescued by the Gold Squadron, and the speech that they gave in the cartoon, which was a canonical show, is on that ship." And Danny's like, "Do I have to stick to this effing speech?" That's funny. Andor. Okay, this is the craziest. This part is crazy. Andor, which won the Best Writing for a Drama Series Emmy last year, was famously greenlit by Kennedy and was one of the rare Star Wars live-action shows to have zero input from Filoni. So, we have, and I mean this with as much respect as I possibly can, we have the Ahsoka guy looking at Andor being like, I'm not so sure about that one. And it's by far and away the best Star Wars show, and it's the only one that Dave Filoni didn't have input on. I'm just saying, is this the guy that we want running Star Wars? Now here's the thing. If we don't know all the details, it's possible that maybe Dave Filoni just wasn't pleased with the fact that they were loosey-goosey with the canon. And to be fair, that's a valid complaint, right? Like, as much as, they let Tony Gilroy cook and that led to an amazing show, it is reasonable to be annoyed that they basically just said, I don't care about the cartoon. I don't care about the Rebels cartoon. We're just going to do our own thing with the Mon Mothma speech. It's valid to be annoyed by that. So if Dave Filoni's problems with Andor are only, hey, I think it kind of sucks that you didn't adhere to our canon that we set up, I'm not as bothered by that. But if it's if Dave Filoni, again, the Ahsoka guy, is looking at Andor and going, I don't think that that's very good. Or he's looking at Andor and he's like, I don't think that a grounded, political thriller is what Star Wars should be. Then I'm going to have problems with that. So we don't know all the details, but at the end of the day, all of this together makes me not super optimistic about Dave Filoni running Star Wars. But let me be clear. I would love to be wrong. Okay? I would love nothing more than for Ahsoka to come out later this year, Ahsoka Season 2, and for Dave Filoni to have taken all the feedback that he got on Season 1, and for him to deliver an amazing season of television, and for me to come out and make my review and be, boy howdy, I was wrong. I was a fool. Dave Filoni's the king. I love his hat. I'm super optimistic about the future of Star Wars. I would love for that to happen. I'm just not confident that it will. So I'll leave it at that. Next story. James Gunn has explicitly denied the rumors that Wonder Woman and Batman are going to be in Superman Man of Tomorrow. So somebody wrote to him on social media. They said, "Hi, James. Is it true that actors auditioned for the role of Batman at the end of 2025? I saw this rumor in my feed. This person is clearly British. Well, we won't hold that against him." James Gunn says, "No, all these rumors of Batman and Wonder Woman auditions are false." And then somebody else asks, "Would you like to throw water on my theory that they're both in the movie in some capacity?" James Gunn says, "Yep." I mean, that is explicit. That is him explicitly saying that Batman and Wonder Woman are not in the movie. And then somebody else asks him, "Are the Wonder Woman Man of Tomorrow leaks real? I try to avoid leaks unless they come from your mouth, but the rumors are getting so loud that it's becoming hard to ignore for many of us." James Gunn says, "No, we are currently casting a female character in Man of Tomorrow. My only guess is scoopers are taking a stab at guessing that's Wonder Woman. It's been reported that the character that he's talking about is Maxima, who I'm not really familiar with. And then somebody else says, "Are there roles for Man of Tomorrow yet to be cast? Will we be getting casting soon?" And then James Gunn says, "The big news was Brainiac. Most other sizable roles are characters we've already met. Smaller roles are being casted now." So, yeah, I mean, James Gunn, usually when it comes to these things, I feel like he tends to answer stuff in a way that you can kind of that later on he can kind of go back on, but he words it in such a way that it's kind of like, oh, well, technically he said this. So even though Batman and Wonder Woman are in the movie, he technically didn't lie. He's explicitly saying that Batman and Wonder Woman are not in the movie. So if because a lot of people like to call James Gunn a liar, and he's definitely fibbed in the past. But I will say this: if Batman and Wonder Woman show up in Man of Tomorrow, he's explicitly lying here. I mean, that just is what it is. Which, by the way, I'm also just gonna say this: I'm not that opposed to people lying about their movies. I mean, obviously, it's annoying for us, and it's annoying for me because I cover this stuff and I try to speculate about this stuff. But it's also like, it makes sense that people are gonna lie and be and deceive in order to keep the surprises for their movies. It makes it like Marvel does it, DC does it. You know, Andrew Garfield lied to our faces for a year straight. So I don't know. I feel people get way too sensitive about James Gunn and his fibs. But he's explicitly saying that Batman and Wonder Woman are not in the movie. So that, unfortunately, when it comes from the horse's mouth, that's where we kind of have to take it for what it is, unless or until proven otherwise. So there we go. I will say this: I have no problem with Batman and Wonder Woman not being in Man of Tomorrow. You know, like, people are getting very antsy about Batman and Wonder Woman. They're getting antsy about the DCU in general. I think a lot of people just feel like, where are the big projects? Where's Batman? Where's Wonder Woman? But like, I kind of appreciate the way that James Gunn is handling it so far. I kind of like that he's not so concerned about making projects with the big characters, and he's more so concerned with making projects for scripts that are finished, right? Like, does it make sense to follow up Superman with Supergirl? Not necessarily. But if that script was really good and the project was ready to go, then I kind of respect that it's the second movie. Does it make even less sense to follow that up with a Clayface movie before you've introduced DCU Batman? Yeah, that seems like a really weird decision. But I kind of respect it. So, I don't know. I'm kind of cool with it. I mean, and we'll actually get to another story later, which sheds some more light on why they might be holding off on introducing Batman. But I don't know. I'm okay with them not being in Man of Tomorrow. All right, let's move on to the next story. Luke Coulter is most likely coming back as Luke Cage. Let's watch this clip here from an interview with him.
Again, you killed that role, but you can tell me, is there any, possibilities?
Listen, I will say this. I've had conversations. Please. I've had conversations. I've had conversations, and I'll leave it at that. I've had conversations. Okay.
Yeah, so he's coming back. that was like that was the most that was like the most yes, I'm coming back as a Luke Cage answer possible without saying yeah, I'm coming back. um which honestly I gotta say, with considering what the plot of Daredevil Born Again season 2 is, I feel like the Defenders have to come back in the second season, right? Because if they're setting up an all-out war with Kingpin, how are you not? How are all of the Defenders not going to be involved in that? Like, it's already going to feel weird if when Spider-Man doesn't show up in the second season, which I'm not expecting him to, because it would probably be way too expensive. Is Marvel really going to waste one of the projects that Tom Holland is contractually obligated with on a Disney Plus show? Would Tom Holland at this point in career even want to do a TV thing? So in no way should we be expecting Tom Holland to show up in Daredevil Born Again season 2. But is it going to feel weird that Spider-Man isn't helping them fight Kingpin? Yes, it is. So I'm just going into it assuming that, yeah, I think Luke Cage is going to be in Daredevil season 2. I think Iron Fist, whether it be Colleen Wing or Danny Rand, who technically the canonical Iron Fist right now is Colleen Wing. if you're one of the 5 people that watched Iron Fist season 2, although I think, oh gosh, I can't remember. I think Punisher might not be in it. I think I read somewhere, but he should also be in it. Like they need superheroes to do their war with Kingpin. So I think Luke Cage is obviously going to be back. That interview basically confirmed it. And I didn't love the Luke Cage show, but he was always great in the role. I think he's a great Luke Cage, and so yeah, I'd love to see him back. All right, next up, it seems like Avengers Doomsday is actually a real thing that is happening legitimately, for real, no cap. So we'll read this here. This term was born as the stars Robert Downey Jr. and Timothée Chalamet appeared on stage together in LA for a special screening of Kylie Jenner's Partners, Marty Supreme. Rude way. Did they really need to refer to Tim Cham like that? Yeah, he's just Kylie Jenner's partner, in case you didn't know who Timothée Chalamet was. During the discussion, Avengers Iron Man told the audience, "We both have films opening on December 18th, and we decided to coin it. We're thinking Dunesday." However, he swiftly quipped, "We'll see if we're still friends by then," sending the room into a wave of laughter and applause. So, I was not expecting those dates to stick. Like, I was expecting Dune to move way out of the way of Avengers Doomsday. but it seems like they're sticking to it. Like the fact that we have Robert Downey Jr. and Tim Cham in a panel together, just openly stating, yeah, we're doing Avengers Doomsday, or we're doing Dunesday. Like, that's not going to happen unless Marvel Studios and Warner Brothers have talked and they've agreed to allow Robert Downey Jr. and Timothy Chalamet to, like, officially announce. Like, they're not just going to go rogue and do that. So it seems real. And I don't think that it's a good idea. I mean, hey, I think this was going to be disastrous for Dune 3. Like, I think that Avengers Doomsday, like, say what you will about the MCU, I do think that bringing back the Fox X-Men characters and having them cross over with the MCU, bringing back Chris Evans, sorry, let me drink some water, actually. We're doing it live, guys. Bringing back Chris Evans as Captain America, Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. Like, I think all of that is going to be very exciting for a lot of people. I do think that this is going to be a massive $1 billion, maybe even $2 billion movie. I think that Dune is going to get destroyed. And by the way, while yes, Dune is going to get destroyed, I also think that Avengers Doomsday is going to get hurt, you know? Whereas the movie might have made $2 billion on its own, I think Dune going up against it might bring it down to like 1.5. So this just seems like a really bad idea. That being said, I think it's cool for the fans. You know, I'm actually not a big fan of the Dune movies. I just think they're kind of boring. Cancel me, I don't care. But for people that like Dune and are excited for Doomsday, I mean, I'm happy for you guys. That sounds like an awesome weekend. I mean, I'm going to obviously watch both of them as well. But I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see how that goes. All right. Next up, the story in the thumbnail. Brave and the Bold drama. So, Brave and the Bold just got a new writer. Christina Hodson, known for her work in the big IP and action spaces, is working on a Batman movie for DC Studios, The Hollywood Reporter has confirmed. Hodson is writing... Hodson... I'm trying to highlight it because I forgot to highlight it earlier. Oh, you can't even see my highlights, can you? Oh, no, yes, you can. Okay. Hodson is writing The Brave and the Bold, the feature project that is centered on Batman and Robin. In this version is Damian Wayne, the murderous tween raised by assassins who also happens to be the son Batman never knew he had. One source said the scribe had been working on the project since at least the fall. Another source said that it would be some time before a definitive draft comes in, as the studio is taking a measured approach to its development. So, if we look over here at her projects, she's written Shut In, which has a really bad Rotten Tomatoes score. I was looking at that earlier. She wrote this movie called Unforgettable. I actually didn't look into this movie. I don't know if it's good or not. Then we get to Bumblebee. Bumblebee is really positively received. People say that this is the best live-action Transformers movie. I started watching it, and then I never finished it. I need to get back to it. But people really like it. She wrote a short film called Agent Burns. Welcome to Sector 7. Who knows what this is? I have no idea. Oh, is this is this like a Transformers spin-off short film thing? I guess? Shared universe. Okay, I'm not going to get too deep into it. She wrote that too. Okay, now we get into the super controversial stuff. So she wrote Birds of Prey. I don't hate Birds of Prey. I don't know, it's weird. This is a very divisive movie. It feels like there are some people that really, really love Birds of Prey, and then there are people that really, really hate Birds of Prey. I land somewhere in the middle. I thought that it was fine. But then the really rough one is The Flash. Now, here's what I'm going to say. I don't blame her for The Flash, nor do I blame Andy Muschietti. Like, guys, The Flash was in development for a decade. For people that don't know, now I might have the timeline not completely accurate here, but it's something akin to this. They announced that they were making a Flash movie with Ezra Miller. Then the show started. The Flash CW show aired. That entire show aired before we finally got the Ezra Miller Flash movie. And why was that? Because that project was in development hell for a decade. Andy Muschietti, I don't blame him for how that movie turned out. I don't blame Christina Hodson. Those two got that movie across the finish line. Like, I don't know. And actually, let's continue reading this project, or the article. Muschietti remains on board, but his ultimate involvement depends on several factors, including timing and availability. The filmmaker now finds himself a hot commodity thanks to the muscular... That's a funny way... It's a way to say it. Thanks to the muscular success of Welcome to Derry, HBO's It series. A second season is now in the works, even if it has not been officially renewed. So, it seems like a lot of people are just very upset right now that James Gunn still has on Andy Muschietti as the director, even though everybody hates The Flash. And I might as well bring this up here now. It seems like Sam Raimi is trying to put himself in the running to direct this movie. Because he said this quote recently: "I love Batman. I tried to make a Batman film. I couldn't get the rights. I love The Shadow. I also couldn't get the rights to that one. But Superman's always been one of my favorites." Oh, I should mention that they asked him what DC movies he would want to make. Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of DC characters that I love, and it would just take the writers to come up with an original story based on their character that's true to the character and part of their real universe, not something that disappoints the fans, but something that's based on the fans' love of the character and brings out the best moment of those characters and their proper conflicts, or the right challenges for the right hero. If it was a story that had a real journey for that particular individual, then I'd love to make the movie. And so yeah, people are basically saying, bro, why are you having Andy Muschietti with the writer of The Flash making a Batman movie when Sam Raimi is right there? And I definitely agree with the Sam Raimi part. Right? Like, I don't know why you're still having Muschietti on board to direct this when it seems like you could just call up Sam Raimi and be like, "Hey, dog, you want to come direct this?" And by the way, Sam Raimi seems like the perfect director for a DCU Batman movie because you're still committing, right, to having a ongoing DCU Batman franchise at the same time as Robert Pattinson. And if you're going to do that, you need to have these two franchises be completely, they need to feel completely different, and B, they both need to be great. Because the Batman was amazing. I'm just assuming that the Batman Part 2 is amazing. You can't have a mediocre DCU Batman being directly compared to Matt Reeves' Batman. And I think Sam Raimi would definitely make something that is A, distinct, B, probably great if you pair him with a great script, right? I don't necessarily blame him also for Multiverse of Madness because I don't think the problems with that movie was the direction, really. So I agree with the Andy Muschietti part. Actually, we'll continue reading here before I give my full thoughts on the Christina Hodson part. Then there's the Batman movie now in pre-production from filmmaker Matt Reeves and actor Robert Pattinson. DC is said to be giving Reeves' project ample space to breathe and is no rush to put forth another Batman feature into the marketplace. It wants to make sure that Brave and the Bold is distinct enough in tone and look to stand apart regardless of when it gets made. So that's actually another interesting part here, right? It kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It seems like James Gunn is not actually in much of a rush to even make Brave and the Bold in the first place. I mean, I this is honestly kind of a separate conversation, but again, I kind of respect that. Because kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier, people treat DC Studios as if James Gunn is doing the DCU and Matt Reeves is like completely separate. Make no mistake, the Batman Part 2 is also James Gunn's movie. Insofar as he is the executive of the studio, right? It is his movie insofar as The Force Awakens is Kathleen Kennedy's movie. Insofar as, Andor is Kathleen Kennedy's show. So, like a lot of people are like, this all also relates to the whole, Netflix is buying Warner Brothers. So is James Gunn, is his status as CEO, is that in question now? Yada, yada, yada. Well, if Batman Part 2 comes out and it's great, that's still going on James Gunn's scorecard. It doesn't matter that he didn't direct it. It doesn't matter if it's not in the DCU. He still made the decision to continue on with the Reevesverse. He still made the decision to approve of whatever script Matt Reeves wrote. So it's actually not the craziest thing in the world that James Gunn isn't in any rush to make a DCU Batman when he still has a really hyped up, a really big Batman movie coming out in 2027. Like, I know it sounds crazy that there's the idea that there doesn't need to be a rush for a DCU Batman, but I actually don't necessarily think that that's the case. Oh, by the way, IbbyCon C5X, I see you in the chat here. Big shout out, bro. Love the content. Thank you. Shout out to you. But yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but I don't actually think it is. I don't know that there is that big of a rush to get a DCU Batman when you still have a Batman movie that's coming out relatively soon. But I don't know. I feel like that's a really interesting topic of conversation. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. But anyways, let me read this last thing about Christina Hodson. It says here, Hodson has gained respect from peers and execs for her strong scripts. She has worked in the Gotham City corner of DC before, having penned a script for a Batman Beyond feature that earned praise inside the studio, but was never made. So, and I was actually listening to the Hot Mic podcast yesterday. It's on John Roca's channel where he does it with Jeff Schneider, which, by the way, actually it says it here at the bottom of the article. The In Schneider newsletter was first to report Hodson's involvement in Brave and the Bold, right? So he's an industry scooper, and he does his podcast, The Hot Mic. He brought up an interesting point, which is that Christina Hodson is the type of screenwriter in Hollywood where she's a reliable screenwriter that the studios like and they keep hiring because she writes solid scripts. But her scripts tend to be taken by directors and then the directors sort of run away with it and make their own changes. Right? So even though, yes, she directed Birds of Prey, that movie was not necessarily like it's not necessarily her script that then ended up on the screen. her Flash script is not necessarily what ended up on the screen. And to be fair, you then got to take that. You then, if you're not gonna blame her for the negative stuff, it's possible that her Bumblebee script wasn't that great, and then Travis Knight, who directed that movie, maybe he spruced it up and made the movie what it was, right? But she's clearly written more than what's actually ended up being made, right? Like if she wrote a really great Batman Beyond script, then maybe she should be, writing The Brave and the Bold. If she wrote a really good Batman Beyond movie, which is sort of a father-son story, kind of, you know what I mean? A mentor-mentee story. Like if that was a really great script, then maybe she should be writing a Damian Wayne and Bruce Wayne story. So I wouldn't freak out about Christina Hodson yet. By the way, oh shoot, I should have probably looked this up before I started recording, but I think she also wrote the Batgirl movie. You know what? Let me make sure about that real quick. Batgirl movie screenwriter. Okay. It says here, the screenwriter for the Batgirl movie is Christina Hodson. So that movie was reportedly so bad that Warner Brothers deemed it unfit for release. Now, my personal take on the whole Batgirl situation was, I just don't believe them, because this was around the same time where when they were saying that Batgirl was so bad that they couldn't release it, they were also saying that The Flash was like the greatest comic book movie ever made. And when I say they, I mean James Gunn and David Zaslav. So it's just like I obviously have not seen Batgirl, but I just don't necessarily believe them when they say that it was quote unquote unreleasable. I also can't say that it was good because, as I said, I have not seen it. So regardless, it goes to what I'm saying, or it goes to what I've said. She's written way more scripts than we've seen turned into movies, and those scripts might be amazing. And even her bad scripts aren't necessarily emblematic in the final product. So I'll end with this. Is Christina Hodson an exciting pick to write Brave and the Bold? No, it's not. It's simply not. Like, I'm not like jumping for joy at Christina Hodson. But am I chicken littling things where I'm saying the sky's falling? No, I'm not doing that either. I think it's very much a wait and see scenario. And not for nothing, but James Gunn is always going on and on about how he's not going to make a movie unless the script is great. So, assuming that he's still sticking by that, they're not going to make The Brave and the Bold unless James Gunn likes Christina Hodson's script. So that's also another thing to point out. All right, last story of the day. Let's talk about what Sophie Turner said about Tomb Raider. So she's obviously playing Tomb Raider in the upcoming Netflix, or not Netflix, Amazon Prime Tomb Raider show. And she said something that okay, I'll just read it. Turner went deep into preparation for Tomb Raider. Her take on the character is not sex bombshell, as she puts it, and there will be no pointy boobs involved. It's about her and her story and what drives her, rather than what so many people love about her, or what so many people also love about her, which is how hot she is in the games and the movies, Turner says. But I really want to show the other side. She's so unashamedly capable. She is not a woman who hides her strengths at all. I just don't understand why why these actors are always coming out and saying stuff like this. Like, it's just so not necessary, because Sophie Turner said this, and then you go on social media, people are being like, oh my gosh, Tomb Raider is dead on arrival. Oh, they're ruining the character. She's not fit to play the character. If you look at the photo that they released, the first photo, they're like she's clearly hot as Tomb Raider. Like she's an attractive woman. She's playing Tomb Raider. She's in the classic outfit. She's going to look hot. And yes, you assume that they're going to try to make her an interesting character beyond her being attractive. Just say that part. Just say that, like, if she didn't say the whole thing about how, if she didn't say the whole thing about her not being a bombshell, and she just said, it's about her story and what drives her, and then she skipped the rather than what so many people also love about her, which is how hot she is in the games and the movies. If she just said it's about her story and what drives her, and then she skipped all this other stuff and said she's so unashamedly capable, she's not a woman who hides her strengths at all, then guess what? Nobody's gonna have issues with your with your comment. But like, why are you talking about one of the most beloved aspects of Tomb Raider, which is her physical attractiveness, as if it's like kind of a negative thing? And I mean, she's not necessarily saying that either. But I don't understand why. I don't understand how these studios at this point, after all the controversies that we've had with Rachel Zegler and Snow White, and I don't know, like whatever other controversies you can conjure up, like, how is it possible that at this point these studios aren't sitting these actors down and going, hey, avoid these talking points. Hey, if you're playing Tomb Raider in a movie, don't talk about how you're not leaning into the sex appeal. Because you're making a Tomb Raider show. And when you look at the picture, it seems like they're leaning into the sex appeal. It's just bringing unnecessary negative attention to the show. And listen, at the end of the day, is this that big of a deal? No, it's not. If the show is great, then it's going to be great and it'll be successful and none of this will matter. It just feels like so many of these actors say unnecessarily divisive things that just feed the culture war nonsense. And I just don't think it's necessary. But hey, I hope it's good. Honestly, Amazon Prime does a pretty good job with their adaptations, right? Like, they do The Boys, Invincible, Fallout is great, sans terrible deepfake characters. People will like cherry pick and be like, oh, The Wheel of Time or whatever, which I've never seen and I've never read the books and I don't care. Or Lord of the Rings, which I don't care about Lord of the Rings either. But it's like, for the most part, I feel like their adaptations are pretty dang good. So I'm fairly optimistic about this Tomb Raider show. I think it'll be a fun show. And I'm assuming this is crazy take that Sophie Turner is going to be very attractive in the show. Wild take that an attractive woman is going to be attractive in a show where she's running around in short shorts. But anyways, that is it for my first show back. First nerdy movie news roundup show back. I had fun. I think this will be good for me. Instead of me feeling guilty about not covering a bunch of topics, every Friday, I'm just going to live stream. I'm just going to go live and I'm just going to yap and I'm going to make sure that I cover everything. Even if I'm not able to make, the properly edited videos that I would like to make throughout the week, I'll at the very least come on here live and talk about it with you guys. And I think that'll be good. So let me know can't edit that out. Let me know what you think about any and all of these topics in the comments down below. And